Hello everybody, it's Azza, and a very Merry Christmas to you all, or Happy Holidays, whatever you celebrate. Today I thought, seeing as it's Christmas time, and literally as of filming this, it is Christmas Eve, I thought, why not make a top 10 list of my favourite Christmas films? This is probably going to be very rushed, and I'm probably going to not be able to get it out by Christmas time, so without further ado, just to warn you, this list isn't in order of worst to best. I just like these films so much, and I like to watch them during the holiday season. So without further ado, let's get to the countdown. Okay, so the first film I wish to put on this list is The Santa Claus with Tim Allen. Basically, this film is about a guy who's working so hard it's borderline neglectful on his child. And so the child stays round his house and he accidentally kills Santa. He then ends up putting on the suit and is contractually obliged to be the new Santa after, you know what, axing off the previous Santa. It's a pretty goofy film at times, although it does get a bit dark considering he has a mental breakdown during the film. Aside from that, I think it's a fairly alright film. I would really recommend checking it out. Okay, so the second film I'm going to put on here is a bit of a complete heel turn. It's Bob Clark's 1974 slasher film, Black Christmas. Now, this film is about a bunch of sorority sisters on a college campus living in a sorority house, and they slowly get picked off one by one during the holiday season by a killer who just so happens to be calling from the house. I just spoiled one of the biggest plot threads. Oh dear. I'm pretty sure you should have just been aware of spoilers by this point. But anyway, it's a really good film. And surprisingly, it's directed by the same bloke who directed another Christmas classic, which is on this list, a little bit further down the list. But anyway, Black Christmas, quite a good film. Actually has Margot Kidder in it. Check it out. It's really good. One of the first ever slasher films. Right, so the next film on the list is actually a fairly recent film. It came out literally this year, and it is called 8-Bit Christmas. Now, if you can tell from my 80s Portal channel, I'm a sucker for things set in the 80s, and this film is set in the 80s, and it is all about a child who wants to get an NES for Christmas, a Nintendo Entertainment System. I've actually played a couple of the games on my 80s Portal channel already. Played Donkey Kong on the NES. But that aside, it's pretty much just the trials and tribulations of this kid who tries so hard to get this NES with his disapproving parents. There's even a video game violence reference in there. It's a pretty funny film. Got Neil Patrick Harris in it. It's also got the dad from Diver Wimpy Kid in it. So he's always hilarious. Always as if he's having a mental breakdown. So, great film. Came out fairly recently. Watch it. Right, so the next film I want to cover on this list is another slasher film. Yes, I'm a horror film buff. Deal with it. This film is called Silent Night, Deadly Night. Now, you probably know this series best from the Garbage Day meme from the second film. But the second film is so bad it's good. The first film is actually surprisingly good. Also, the second film, pretty much half of it is just a recap of the first film to pad out the runtime. But basically, it's about this kid called Billy. When he's young, he and his brother Ricky are made orphans after a man dressed as Santa kills his parents on the roads. And years later, he becomes a mall Santa and turns into a killer Santa. This film actually caused quite a lot of controversy when it came out because people didn't like the idea of a beloved holiday icon being a murderer. But I'd say it's a fairly good film. There are some funny moments in it and some memorable moments as well. So I'd suggest this holiday season, pick up a copy of Silent Night, Deadly Night and watch it. It's a scary, fun time. Alright, the next film I'm going to cover is just an absolute classic. You can't beat it. You can't have a festive season without watching it. And it is, of course, Home Alone. Home Alone, released in 1990. It's amazing. Goes without saying, needs no introduction. Macaulay Culkin is a 8-year-old kid who gets left home alone and nearly kills a couple of robbers. Logically, they should be dead because of the horrific traps. Hell, there's even a theory going around saying that Kevin McAllister eventually changed his name to John Kramer and then became the Jigsaw Killer from the Saw movies. But in seriousness, Home Alone is an amazing film, and you should just definitely watch it. Okay, so the next on my list, I think it's only appropriate. Last one was Home Alone. I think it's only appropriate that they make the next one Home Alone 2. Now, I'm not by any means saying that Home Alone 2 is better than Home Alone 1. It definitely isn't. I'm just saying that it is definitely the best sequel in the Home Alone series. Home Alone 3 was an embarrassment, Home Alone 4 was a joke, and Home Alone 5 was a travesty. Don't even get me started on Home Sweet Home Alone. But Home Alone 2 is amazing. It's all right. There's one single actor that completely saves it for me. Tim Curry. You can't beat Tim Curry. Tim Curry is my freaking hero. And, well, he saves the film for me. He steals every single scene that he's in. So, Home Alone 2, watch it. It's an alright film, but Tim Curry makes it all the better. Right, next on the list of my favourite Christmas films, I warned you about this one. This film is directed by the same person who directed Black Christmas. And this just so happens to be one of the most wholesome Christmas films ever made. So, from horrific, horrible slasher film to wholesome Christmas story. Christmas Story is basically about a child who wants an air gun for Christmas, but his parents don't want him to have it. So basically he tries everything he can to convince his parents or other people to try and get him the gun. Eventually he does get the gun in the end. Whoops, spoiler. Oh dear. But we also see a lot of other stuff, like a lot of kids. There's a kid who gets his tongue stuck to a frozen pole. There is a kid sitting underneath the sink. There's even a Santa Claus that pushes you down a slide when you're done with him. It's hilarious. It's absolutely chaotic, and I love it so much. Really recommend it. Okay, so the very next film after Christmas Story on this list of my favourite Christmas films, I will literally fight anyone who says that this isn't a Christmas film. Die Hard. Die Hard from 1988. Now, Die Hard is a Christmas film. Anyone who says it isn't a Christmas film has something wrong with them. I honestly, it is literally, it's bleeding Christmas. There's a Christmas tree. There are songs in it. He literally says "Happy Trails, Hans" at the end of the film. The credits end with a Christmas film. Basically, it's about like this New York cop who's going to a party at this place called Nakatomi Plaza, where his wife works. Just so happens that there are some German terrorists also planning on breaking into it. So basically, John McClane, this cop, has to overthrow them and save the day, basically. It's a really good film. And if you want some action in your Christmas, watch this film. It's so good. Right, so we're down to the last two films on the list. Now, these are actually my two favourite films on the list. I did leave these ones. My number two favourite Christmas film is Gremlins. Gremlins is basically about this inventor guy. He goes to Chinatown to look for a present for his son. A weird place to look for a present, but he finds an old antique shop, an even weirder place to find a present. And he finds a little animal called a mogwai, a Chinese animal, and he calls it Gizmo. It's a wholesome little creature, but there are certain rules. There are 3 rules, I think. You can't get him wet, so you can't give him a drink or anything. You can't get him into sunlight, so you can't take him out in the middle of the day. And the most important rule is don't feed him after midnight. Of course, his son breaks every single one of those rules. The first thing he does is shine a bright light, flash it with a camera, and it nearly kills Gizmo. Second thing he does is his mate accidentally pours water on him, and he multiplies into loads of them. And then the worst thing is they all change his clock, and he ends up accidentally feeding them after midnight, which turns them into crazy little horrible gremlin things that take over the town. It's a really good film by Joe Dante. I really recommend a watch. So here we are. My favourite Christmas film to watch is now National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. This came out in 1989 and stars Chevy Chase as Clark Griswold. He's a standard family man who is pretty much having the worst Christmas you could ever have. What he wants to do is have a nice family gathering with family members from both sides of the family, from his side of the family and his wife's side of the family. Of course, everything descends into chaos. The tree burns down, so they have to get a new one from right outside the house. The dinner gets ruined. It's full of air. He cuts it open. It deflates like a balloon. And probably the most famous scene in the film, when he thinks he's going to get his Christmas bonus, thinks he's going to get paid more because it's Christmas time. It turns out to be a 1 year membership of the Jelly of the Month Club, and he has an absolute meltdown. That is my favourite scene in the film. It's one of my favourite films, and it's an amazing film. So much. I would really recommend you watch it this Christmas season and every Christmas season. So there you have it. That is my 10 favourite Christmas films to watch during the holiday season. Anyway, I really hope you have an amazing Christmas. Christmas is tomorrow. I should be able to get this up by tonight. So I will see you next time, and in a very different way to end the video. Have a very Merry Christmas. Goodbye.